أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Welcome to this fourth segment of our 9-part series, Witnesses to Humanity, being brought to you by IslamiCity through its annual Muharram 1446 commemoration. This year, we pay tribute to those who have bravely faced adversity, sacrificing their life for truth and justice and for the betterment of mankind. I'd like to thank the founders, Dr. Aslam and Brother Alim, for facilitating this commemoration on a yearly basis on IslamiCity. You know, the tragedy of Karbala is absolutely central to our reflection this Muharram, as it would be for any Muharram. It serves as a powerful reminder of sacrifice epitomized by Imam Hussein, the Prophet Muhammad's beloved grandson, and his unwavering stand against tyranny and oppression, which embodied the essence of truth and justice. As we embark on Witnesses for Humanity, we must redefine witnesses, not as passive observers, but as active participants. In witnessing, we do not merely observe, we participate. We commit ourselves to the ongoing struggle for justice and human dignity. We become active agents of change, drawing inspirations from the heroes that we are discussing and the countless others who have laid down their lives for a greater cause. And hence, the series title, Witnesses for Humanity. With that, without further ado, I'd like to invite my co-presenter, Dr. Aslam Abdullah, to talk about another figure in the history of humanity, Joan of Arc. Dr. Aslam, please.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and thank you very much, Dr. Walji and Brother Lim, for giving us this opportunity to share these personalities who have really influenced the humanity and who have given a new meaning to the term humanity itself. In fact, the one that I'm going to talk about today is Joan of Arc of France, Jeanne Arc. This 19-year-old girl changed the politics of that region, but more than that, she asserted her religious autonomy and freedom, and then she willingly kissed the death for her ideals and belief. And you ever wonder where did she get the strength from? You ever wonder whether a person of that caliber nature, the determination, that kind of understanding of the world around, that kind of courage ever lived? Really, I mean, uh, her life is unparalleled in the history of not only women, but in the history of men as well. She was born in 1412 in a small village in France, and her life was taken in 1431. That is almost 19 years of age when she was put to gallows. That was the time when France was going through the wars with Charles, was the one who was involved in 100 Years' Wars with English And she was the one who persuaded the government of the time, the French ruler at the time, to tackle the English on their turf. She was not a lettered person. She was not taught how to read or write. And all, the letters that are referred to as her letters were dictated by her or spoken by her. And so, yet she was the one who understood the politics of the time very well. And more than that, she understood the responsibilities. She was a peasant girl with 3 brothers and sister, and certainly 2 of her brothers supported her in her struggles and in her courageous involvement in the war against the British. She was the one who led the French army in its fight against English and liberated Orleans. And certainly that was one of the accomplishments that she is known in the French. But more than that, what was that she always attributed her strength to divine guidance, and that and the divine teachings that she learned from her parents and in that small village. And she testified that when she was 13, that is around 1425, Saint Michael, surrounded by angels, appeared to her in the gardens. Whether it was a dream or it was in reality, it is not specified. And after this vision, she said that she wanted them to take her with them. And throughout the life, she had that vision of St. Michael. And she tried to follow the teachings of St. Michael. And he's a saint who is seen as a defender of France. And she also said that she had these visions frequently and that she often had them when the church bells were ringing. And so she attributed this to, of course, the divine guidance and divine. When she was growing up, there was a prophecy circulating in the French countryside based on the visions of many of the saints of that particular time, who promised an armed version would come forth to save France. And another prophecy at that particular time was that a virgin, a young girl, would carry the banner and put an end to France's suffering. And Joan basically took it upon herself to be that person and to be the one who literally liberated France and liberated the people from the suffering that they were going through. Now, she was tried later on by the church for her belief system, and then she was tortured. She was put in consignment, asked to retract her statements, her beliefs, her opinions. Yet she stuck to her worldview and her understanding of the faith and her understanding of the. She refused to accept and acknowledge the dominion of the church in that respect, and she basically accepted the verdict against her gracefully, and she was primarily killed with the connivance of the church. But there are a lot of details, and one can go over all things in her life. She was put on a trial for heresy, and it was in June 9th, January 9th in 1431, and on May 30th, she was put to gallows. She was accused of having blasphemy. And what was the blasphemy? That she was wearing men's clothes. That she was acting upon visions that were demonic. And then she refused to submit her words and deeds to the church because she claimed she would be judged by God alone. I mean, how brave and how courageous that person could be, who, after so much, giving so much to France and so much to the people, would stand up and make that kind of claim in the midst of the organized churches that were basically controlling the minds and souls. And that was a time when the church had that idea that women do not even have souls. And that Joan did not retract her statement. She testified that the visions had formed her viewpoint and perspective, and then she was fighting based on our understanding of the divine guidance and divine message, and she was primarily saying that if she did not stand up, then suppression and what they call the dictatorial tendencies would continue to dominate the word at that time. And the verdict of the court was, of course, unanimous. Because she was given the opportunity to retract, she was given the opportunity to withdraw the statement, but she refused. And then there were 131 clergy people who participated in that trial. She was declared a witch by all except 8. And then many of these people were associated with the University of Paris, but they were pro-English. And finally, I think she was, uh, uh, pronounced that kind of word. And when the verdict came, she showed great control. She induced her interrogators to ask questions sequentially rather than simultaneously, referring back to their records when appropriate, and the session when she requested. And then to such an extent that even those who were trying her were impressed with her demeanor and her way of making a coherent statement and coherent ideas, even at that moment of great trial, that many of them were stunned by her answer. I mean, even though she was uneducated in the scriptures, yet her answer was so powerful in terms of its argument about the divinity and about the divine guidance that they were instant. And then, of course, in the same year, in the early May, the judgment was pronounced, and on 30th of May, she was executed because at that particular time in France, public heresy was a capital punishment, and uh, France was not willing to accept any citizen who was unrepentant, or the English people were not willing to accept anyone who were unrepentant or who wanted to relapse, and over the judgment of what they call the secular state and the secular trials. And she was required, in order to survive, to renounce wearing men's clothes. She, uh, what even at that particular time, she was forced to change the clothes, that she exchanged her clothes for a women's dress, and allowed her to shave her head as a means of protest. And then she was kept in chains, most being, instead of being transferred those kind of ecclesiastical prison where these kind of individuals were kept at that particular time. And 2 days before her death, a lot of clergy went and tried to persuade her to change her mind, but she refused, and finally she was put to gallows. It took France some years to recognize what was done to this young girl. Her execution created a political liability for Charles, who was the ruler. And certainly in 1452, some 21 years after her death, France and the clergy decided to bestow her with the sainthood. Well, people, of course, challenge many of those kind of things, but what is important, that this 19-year-old girl, a peasant girl, was willing to offer everything for her belief. You may disagree with the belief system. You may disagree that she was in communication directly with God, but what is important is her iman, her faith in believing what she was witnessing. And in that respect, in my view, when it comes to women, I think I would put her at the one of the greatest women ever born on earth, who basically offers an example for everyone, regardless of their faith and regardless of her uh, identity and ethnicity. So I think she should be celebrated for what she did. And then when we look at the relevance of the message that she is giving, and then she gave, we find a lot of similarity, with Imam Hussein in that particular respect. That she was essentially following the same path which was followed by Imam Hussein, that I would stand for my belief no matter what you do and what you say. And in that respect, if I have to offer my life, I would not hesitate. Imam Hussein, of course, when we talk about him, certainly we would mention it was not only one individual, but an entire family, an entire clan that responded to his call and offered their lives along with Imam Hussein. And in that respect, he is unique in the history of humanity also. But as far as Joan of Arc is concerned, that she is the one who has inspired writers, plays and poems and operas and films, paintings, children's books, everything. And certainly she deserves to be that person. The next individual that we want to talk about is none other than the 16th century, I think, philosopher, academician, and physicist, as well as an astronomer, Galileo. He was born in 1564 near Pisa. He was son of a musician. He began to study medicine at the University of Pisa, but changed to philosophy and mathematics. In 1589, he became professor of mathematics at Pisa. That is 1589, almost 20, at the age of 25, and he became held that kind of position for the next 21 years. And during this time, he worked on a variety of experiments, including the speed at which different objects fall, mechanics, and pendulums. In 1609, he heard about the invention of the telescope in Holland. Without having seen an example, he constructed a superior version and made many astronomical discoveries. These include mountains and valleys on the surface of the moon, sunspots, the four largest moons of the planet Jupiter, and the phases of the planet Venus. And his work on astronomy made him famous, and he was appointed court mathematician in Italy and in Florence specifically. In 1614, he was accused of heresy for his support of the theory that the sun was at the center of the solar system. Now, this was a revolutionary idea at a time when many people believed that the Earth was in this central position. In 1616, he was forbidden by the Church, that is the Catholic Church, from teaching or advancing these kind of ideas and these theories. In 1632, he was again condemned for heresy after his book Dialogue concerning the two chief world systems. And that set out the argument for and against the theory in the form of a discussion between two men. Galileo was summoned to appear before the Inquisition. Inquisition is the infamous kind of process that the Catholic Church adopted in the medieval time, when anyone who would question the authority of the ideas of the Roman Catholic Church would be subject to all kind of persecution and all kind of torture. He was convicted and sentenced to life imprisonment. And then he was, later on reduced to permanent house arrest, and his in Florence, and he was forced to publicly withdraw his support for Copernican theory about the Earth. He was blind. He became blind at that particular time, but he continued to write. And in 1638, his discourses concerning, the scientists was published, and then he elaborated on the ideas or the laws of motion and the principles of mechanics. He died on January 8, 1642. Now, what is interesting is that even though in our time, everyone grows up learning that the Earth orbits the sun. But think that 4 centuries ago, the idea of a solar system was so controversial that the Catholic Church classified it as a heresy. And it warned Galileo to abandon it. Now, Church hounded him for almost 2 decades, and he openly maintained belief in this solar system. And he was only spared, fortune and death because his powerful friends intervened on his behalf. But the examination of the final details of his conflict with the church leaders does not bear that out, because according to many, that he was subject to torture, he was subject to condemnation, and he was subject to public ridicule, and he was forced to withdraw his ideas. And 400 years or plus years after his death, it is he whose ideas have succeeded, and the church has retreated on that issue. His life also tells us that knowledge is an essence of life, and in pursuit of knowledge, once one facts point out to anything, and then when a religious establishment stands up against those facts, then it becomes your duty and your responsibility to take a stand and believe on those ideas which are supported by facts, because facts are divinely governed and divinely given. That was his belief. His belief was that the physical laws are determined by God. physical laws do not emerge as a result of uncontrolled evolutionary or biological process, but through a well systematic process. And what is also need to be realized that he refused to compromise, even though he was forced to kneel down and say it in public. But he kept on believing what he believed, as his late writings proved when he was blind and he was doing so. These two individuals certainly offer a very bright face of humanity and the witnesses to humanity who did their best and who gave their best. That is their life and their own comfort for ideas that they believe were divinely inspired and divinely given. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم. Back to you, Dr. Walji.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much, Dr. Aslam, for that wonderful exposition of these two really remarkable individuals. And when you see the commonalities between them, what you see is steadfast truth, standing up for their beliefs, but also there are lessons from them in terms of humanity and compassion. One of the significant instances for Galileo was that he invented the thermoscope, amongst other things. And this device in those days could actually measure temperature changes. Now, understanding the potential applications of this device, Galileo had no compunction, had no hesitation in sharing his invention widely with everyone else. He believed that the accurate measurement of body temperatures would help doctors better understand, treat illnesses, ultimately improving patient care and outcomes. What I wonder is, what would and what is the state of the medical industry and the inventions and the pharmaceutical industry in terms of freely sharing without royalties, without special interest? And that's, another story, that's another discussion. But you can see the humanity even through some of his inventions. Talk about, Joan of Arc. Again, her humanity really shines through, even during the siege of Orleans, as we know, in 1429, that she was aware of the brutal nature of war and the potential of violence against the inhabitants, the local inhabitants. And she actually issues orders, strict orders, to her troops to respect lives and properties of residents in Orleans. And where did this order come from? It was really her deep sense of compassion and humanity. Even amidst the chaos of war, what we see today in the world, in Gaza and elsewhere, that where is that compassion, where is that humanity that, people like Joan of Arc kind of left behind? This young French peasant girl rises, as you said rightly, to prominence during the 100 Years' War, that she not only led her troops to victories, but, also took great care to protect civilians. This is the ethos of somebody, a leader, who was obviously later going as a saint, but was not recognized in her own day as to who she was. One day it is said that the French soldier committed a grave offense by stealing from the local villagers. And when she learned of this, she was absolutely outraged by the injustice inflicted upon the very people these soldiers were supposed to protect. And without hesitation, she confronted the soldier and demanded the return. These are the instances in their lives which show the human values, like, Galileo's advocacy for the use of scientific advancements for the good of humanity. And similarly, obviously, we see the compassion that was demonstrated in his broader struggle for justice by Imam Hussein. The idea of, again, sacrifices, as you alluded to, made by Joan of Arc and Galileo were very significant. Joan of Arc faced intense personal risk, enduring capture, trial, and execution at a young age. But her unwavering commitment to her liberating her country, liberating France, and ensuring, the rightful place of where France should be, really exemplifies her selfless dedication. Galileo again sacrifices personal freedom and reputation in defense of scientific truth. As you said rightly, the heliocentric model led to his trial. In both cases, the churches were involved in totally misunderstanding, and that truly is a tragedy of our times, that people like those are persecuted. Of course, when we look at this, Imam Hussein's sacrifice at Karbala, as you rightly mentioned, stands out because Imam was not alone, he was with many. And due to his sheer scale and the totality of his commitment, Imam Hussein, facing a vastly superior force, chose to stand against the oppressive regime of Yazid. He was fully aware that this would lead to his martyrdom. But his sacrifices, as we know, and as we compare these personalities, these witnesses, was not only for personal gain, but it also encompasses family and followers. And they also suffered alongside with him. The other thing that I must observe is that all three, Galileo, Joan of Arc, and Imam Hussein, were actually killed by their own. They were not external enemies who came and executed them or killed them. There is that similarity to say that even your own people failed to understand you until it was too late. That indeed is where and why we honor their memories by striving to uphold the values that they so bravely championed. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us that courage to stand up for what is right, to speak when we need to speak, because we too must become witnesses and not just continue to witness as witness is a noun. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.